Okay, so ladies, if you are still joining and you just came in, make sure you drop a comment in the chat so I know who's here today because that is going to help me with who is going to be chosen to get a live astrology reading into their love programming tomorrow with Kato, who's going to be on day 2 tomorrow. I'm so excited for you ladies to meet her. She's such an amazing astrologer, specializing in sales and business, but so much of what she does is the love side of astrology and really looking into your chart for those lessons and those patterns that are supposed to occur, because it's really looking at what you're supposed to get out of love in your life. And I thought it was so cool when I learned that astrology, that it's all written in your chart. So you're going to learn about that tomorrow. Um, but today I want to get into, oh, is this session tomorrow at the same time? Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. Sorry for the time change on things. Kato is in South Africa, I believe. And so we just had a little bit of a mix up. But yes, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, which I'm not gonna lie, it is early for me. Okay, so my energy is like, we're getting there and I'll be all energetic by the end of this, but I do need to warm up this morning. Okay, so let's get into day 1. Welcome, ladies, to the AstroDating Lab. I have my iPad beside me that is sharing my screen. So if I'm looking over, I'm just checking to make sure everything's going okay on my iPad. Now, the first thing I want to tell you about is that there is a free spot inside my 6-month dating program, okay? This is a program valued at $8,000, and I'm giving away a spot. However, there is a requirement to get this. I know some of you have been posting the graphic or making a story. Today, what I want you to do is think about your biggest aha moment at the end of today and post it. It can be a video of you on your story, a write-up of it on your story. It can be on your actual profile on Facebook or Instagram. Just make sure that you tag me on my Facebook or my Instagram so that I can see that you did it. And there's one more thing. Okay, you get bonus points if you share the link to the Astro Dating Lab. It's in the last post I posted on Facebook. I'll also drop it in the comments for you. When you share it with a friend and they sign up, okay? If someone in here has 5 friends that sign up, amazing, okay? I really want more women to get in this. We want to increase the visibility of this big, important message that we're talking about today. So when you share your biggest aha moment of today's Astro Dating Lab, I'm going to be reposting them all on my page. And I want you to share the link with some friends, okay? You can even share it in your written post. But if you had people sign up, I want to know who you had sign up, okay? So just update me on that, drop into my DMs, and my right hand incredible woman, Nicole, is going to help me keep track. Okay, so the winner also will be announced tomorrow live, okay? So once tomorrow at 9 a.m. starts, it's all, the spot will have been taken. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about today, ladies, is, why the strategies that you've tried or the inner work hasn't been working for you. Because the women that I work with, I'm typically not their first love coach, if I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes, absolutely. But a lot of the time, you've tried so many different things, different coaches, different modalities, different strategies, gene keys, human design, astrology, so many things that I love. And these strategies are so powerful. Okay. I have an astrologer inside this today or inside this event. But sometimes there's a missing piece that we're going to uncover today that will make it so your strategies and what you're learning is honestly almost like going to class and going to a lesson and learning how to, if you were my dad, he owns like a sprinkler fitting company. So I'm thinking like if you were a pipe fitter and you learned how to do it, right? This is something that not a lot of women know how to do. I certainly don't know how to do it. And if I were to read about how to do it, I would have no idea how to do it after. It would be that implementation piece and becoming someone who knows exactly how to do that, exactly how to fit pipe, which is such a crazy, wild analogy that I'm using for this, but you get it. Okay, so one of the most common patterns I see among women who have tried so many things is you've definitely improved your ability to be feminine, okay? You're able to receive on dates, you're able to go out on these romantic dates and use those more softer tones and the narrative about what feminine energy looks like, and you're able to recognize your patterns. Okay, even ChatGPT can recognize your patterns. I want to point that out, that like that's not something I ever want you to pay for. It's easy for us to recognize your patterns. It's everywhere. This is free information. However, what I notice is that the most common pattern I've been seeing throughout my career with women who are career driven, who are successful, who are focused on their job, who are independent, who are taking care of everyone but themselves, you attract men that either meet that checklist on paper. Okay, so he has the job, he has the like he's got his shit together, his life together, but for some reason there is no spark. Like this is the man that will always pay the bill, that will do the things, but there's just no spark. The chemistry isn't there, and you start to wonder, what's wrong with me? This is the kind of man I've wanted to manifest, yet I don't feel a connection. If anything, he'd be a great friend, okay? Or you attract this super hot and heavy chemistry where your brain is literally fuzzy and your butterflies. I remember the last time before meeting my husband that I had this happen to me, or this man was calling me, FaceTiming me. It was so electric. We were so into each other. And then he just disappeared. Okay. Really common pattern I see. Other patterns are, attracting the men that will breadcrumb you, make promises, and then nothing really follows through. Or you meet that man and everything seems good. The chemistry seems good. He's good on paper, but somehow he's unavailable. Either he has to move away, or he's not over his ex-wife, or he has kids that he has to prioritize. And so something always leads him to walking away. And you're wondering, for a while there, you thought that was definitely the one. And then just poof, like there's some reason that he can't be around. And I'm going to break down exactly what's going on in this pattern, but let me know if you see this pattern in your love life. Tell me in the chat if this is something that shows up for you. Okay, I'm going to open up the chat. Okay. And if you have any other very specific pattern that you want to share, drop it in the chat. Let me know, and I can bring that in today, okay? Okay, so I call this, yes to all, yes, yes, yes. Okay, ladies, you are in the right place, let me tell you. I call this the chemistry to compatibility gap, okay? So the real reason you will attract men who lack this spark or availability, okay, is because your brain is currently wired for familiarity rather than safe, compatible love. Now, what does this mean, familiarity? It's definitely talked about in the therapy space a lot, but we are programmed in our evolution as humans to desire what is familiar to us because we have a fear of the unknown, a very important fear of the unknown. This is why humans were able to stop eating poisonous mushrooms and stick to carrots and survive. They realized when we eat the unknown things, we can die. It can wipe out our entire population, right? When we travel to the unknown place. And so there's this deep, deep programming in us to choose what's familiar to us. However, a lot of the time, it's so hard to see. You don't want to date someone who replicates your father, or you don't want to you can even take the position of your father in the relationship with your father and your mother, or it can be from that very first relationship that you had that really shapes the dynamic. But what really happens is there's this familiarity that's built, even if it felt unsafe at the time, even if it was super traumatic, that shapes the kind of love that your body feels safe in. Even if your brain isn't on board, your body will feel safe. That's what triggers your sparks. That's what triggers certain hormones to develop, certain chemistry to happen, is that your body on a biological level will actually be more compatible with someone who represents those past patterns and the love that you saw, heard, or modeled after this mix up your love programming. That's what will link you to certain people. Okay. So this is what I see being that gap, is you can learn everything you need to set boundaries, to communicate differently, to find the right man. But if your body, that chemistry, that actual chemical compound in your body, that cellular level does not shift, you will continuously attract the same thing over and over. And maybe it will get a bit better because you've learned certain lessons and you know certain red flags, but you will notice this pattern inside you of relationships that make you feel not good enough, relationships that lead to abandonment, relationships that have a lot of rejection, relationships that don't have a lot of emotional availability. Those will reflect either what you experienced in those early stages, in those first relationships in your life, what you saw, or what you heard. So even if your parents were great, amazing parents, just like mine, who had a great relationship, there are going to be things that are familiar that you can emphasize on. And if those first experiences in dating and love were not good, like mine, for example, very tumultuous, very unsafe, then you are going to find familiarity in that. For example, mine was, I was the middle child of two incredible sisters that I have. Okay, I love my sisters, but I developed the feeling that I was really hard to love once I went through a very extreme car accident when I was 17 years old, and I broke, 5 vertebrae, 4 ribs, shoulder blade, punctured a lung, collapsed a lung. I was on my deathbed, and the toll that took on my parents, the PTSD they got from that, the nightmares, seeing them lose weight. I thought, I'm the difficult one. Look at what I've put my parents through. And just that event changed the kind of men that I attracted for the next 4 years of my life. Okay. So I had to shift that chemistry in my brain that was surrounding those beliefs that made these things happen and made me attract these kinds of men, to actually change the story for the rest of my love life. Okay. So just to give you an example of what that actually looks like, even if you grow up in a very healthy environment. But most of us, and most of the women I work with, don't grow up in the most healthy environment. A lot of the time, there is also a narcissistic parent involved, or an absent parent, and then the patterns go even deeper. Okay. So as I said, you can try dating apps, matchmakers, speed dating. The amount of women that I get from matchmakers that join my programs because it didn't work even when they do meet a great man. It's so devastating because we think when we meet the man, when it's like, where's that man? Where's that man? When you attract that man, then it will be okay. But it's really making your body feel safe, and then his body feel safe in that interaction to develop that deep emotional connection and that commitment. Okay. So now, what I kind of want to talk about is the way that your brain is going to tell you that it's caught in a loop where your pheromones are actually drawing in the men that replicate your past experiences. And oh, I'm noticing a spelling mistake immediately on my slide. Okay. But what I want to talk about really is this pheromone production. And it is my favorite thing about what I do. It's the Faraglow method. Some of my clients are here and they have implemented it. Drop it in the chat how powerful and incredible this Faraglow method is. But when we talk about pheromones, I really want you to pay attention to what's actually happening. So when I look at your patterns, they're going to tell me your baseline. For example, if you had to earn attention, approval, favoritism from a parent, your brain is going to attract men that will trigger this chasing, fixing, mothering, working for it patterns, okay? So if you watch that toxic dynamic, or you emotionally shut down because you wanted to be the easy child, the good child, or you were even, abandoned or left by a parent from addiction, from, someone passing, from moving away, from working all the time. This specifically will shape your baseline for attraction, what your body feels is familiar and safe to attract. Okay, I want to just exhaust that point because it's so important. So even if you know for a fact that you are an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment style, or you jump between both and you're disorganized, which is what I experienced, when you try to shift your behavior to the high value or the feminine embodiment, your brain will actually attract men in your love life that influence the learned behaviors to reoccur. So this means that even when you can recognize your patterns and shift your behavior, there will become a cognitive dissonance that occurs. So it's when your behaviors and your subconscious, they're not on board. And it creates this chemical dysfunction in your brain to attract someone who will bring you back into the old loop, okay? So even though you've progressed as a woman, even though you're successful in other areas, you're hyper independent, you're so capable, you're so beautiful, your body wants those men that bring up those old patterns of making you feel shut down, of making you feel like you need to be a good girl, of making you feel all these different conditioned versions of yourself. It's not the real you, it's the conditioned version of yourself, the ways that you've learned how to survive over the years based on the circumstances you've been in. So, for example, avoidant men that make you chase them. That's a behavior of trying to earn love, trying to earn a man's time, attention, okay? Even if you've done the work around strategy to not chase, you will attract men that push you into those behaviors because of that baseline making you chemically compatible with those men. So your body actually draws those men into you and is attracted to those men. Okay, it's like, why am I always attracted to these guys? This is why. Okay, so reiterate one last time, your baseline is what you attract, but it will also show up in these learned behaviors like emotional shutdown or hyperfixation, showing up as an attachment style when really it's a chemical function that's triggered in your brain. Now, this means that your body is going to always light up to the wrong kind of spark and draw on these familiar situations, regardless of the development that you've had. And your body disconnects from men who are actually safe, available, and capable of providing what you want. So this is where that spark is lacking. This is when you're questioning, is there something wrong with me that I don't actually like this guy that finally has the qualities and the lifestyle and the things that I want? Why do I not feel any spark? Now, this is very important to remember. So 90% of mate selection comes from unconscious patterns and scent. So those unconscious patterns are what we've talked about. Now the scent is that this means your pheromones are drawing in the men that are not a match to strategically keep you in relationships that trigger the behavioral patterns your brain learned in the past that it feels safe in, okay? So it is not just a brain pattern at this point. Now it is an identity. And this is the real piece that I see missing 99% of the women that I talk to. It's the identity piece. Your identity now revolves around being hyper independent, where love is hard, it's challenging, it's confusing. It's that part of your life that didn't fall together. It's the part of your life you judge yourself on because you see how it happened for other people and it didn't happen for you. And this now becomes an identity piece in your brain about the way that you feel about yourself and think about yourself, instead of being insecure, detached, feminine energy. Okay? The most important piece of the puzzle. And we're going to get into the brain science, we're going to get into the complexity of this and the nuance, but I really want to stress what secure, detached feminine energy is and looks like. Okay. So, as I've said this, I need to kind of reiterate strategy is very important. I love strategy. I have a strategy on feminine neurology where I look at that feminine side of the brain and I help you create a strategy that influences your feminine energy to feel safe and come out in the kind of way that we date men, the boundaries we set, the way we communicate. However, it alone won't fix it. So, what you've actually been missing is a method that shifts your pheromones to be attracted to the man you want and embodies the behaviors of the woman you want to be inside your relationship with this man, which is secure, detached, feminine energy. Okay. So, what I'm about to share is solely designed for this transformation. Now, I do want to just point out that it also did a lot more than manifest my husband. So, I started using this. And right before I started using this, I actually shifted my attraction patterns slightly by reading books on trauma and noticing the ways that the past dating experiences had affected the kind of men that I was attracting, the ways I felt about myself. So I started to have these strategies that would start to attract better men. But again, there was always something missing. I can tell you the incredible dates I went on with some wonderful men, but something was always missing for me where I just couldn't feel it. There was either a emotional unavailability where I was guarded and I just wanted to be like that cool girl who didn't get too attached. Or I would get super attached and just be like hiding behind that, really, really hoping that he likes me and that it'll all work out. And I felt like this little girl again, like, what am I doing? I'm a professional woman. I'm studying. I'm doing all these incredible things. I'm confident. I'm capable. I'm independent. Yet I'm like literally falling at the mercy of this man that I like actually don't even know because it's only been a few weeks, okay, or even one date. And so what I'm about to show you is pretty crazy, but I do want to just kind of break down how this occurs and why it occurred this way. Okay, so the Farraglow method does both. It shifts the identity and regulates the chemistry, so love becomes easy, magnetic, and lasting. Before I started using this method, I was attracting men that only wanted sex. Okay, this was the most common. Or I would attract boyfriends that would love bomb the crap out of me and then become magically unavailable or avoidant and would make me question, what am I doing wrong? Why did he break up with me one day and post a story with another girl the next day? And now I'm obsessing about watching his posts. And it was like the rock bottom, right, of my dating experiences. But I've been there. And so if you are there, if you look at if your ex or the past guy you dated is watching your stories, or you stress about these things, or you overanalyze your text messages, it's normal behavior considering what your chemicals are doing in your body. Okay. It's actually triggering those behaviors over and over again because it's just this chemical process your brain is memorized to do around relationships and love. So after using this method, I started to attract men who took me seriously and I was able to like bring out that soft, playful, silly side. I am very like I have a weird sense of humor. I'm really quirky. I like love making weird, stupid faces and like real cringe humor. I love cringe humor. And I was always around these men that like if I even like played into that, they would be like, what are you doing? And it would make me feel so weird. And so I hid that side of myself for so long. I hid the side of myself that's a horse girl for so long. I thought, the crazy horse girl stereotypes. I shouldn't tell any men. I shouldn't put, a picture of my horse on my dating profile. I should hide that side of myself. And then I started to really attract men that really were interested in that side of myself, that I felt safe around. Okay. That I was allowed to mess up around, that I was allowed to do the wrong thing or, be a little immature at times, even. And they would lead me to this deeper connection, this deeper communication. Yet I tell the story about the time that I found out that I had chlamydia and I had to tell a man that I was currently seeing. And this is a real like shame game story. And I was terrified to tell him this story, okay? because I got on like a university bus and I was traveling to his apartment because I was supposed to go there after school. And the like sex health unit called me because I was waiting to get birth control and I was getting like an IUD inserted. So they take all those tests, right? And they called me, and here I am on the bus crying, trying to list out any sexual partners I've had in the last year and a half because I have no symptoms. So when you have no symptoms, they do a full year and a half of potential partners. And at that time, sex was my version of control. Okay. So I was rebelling a lot and I felt really safe in the control of sex until I was very unsafe in the control of sex and I got taken advantage of. And this is how I ended up getting chlamydia. So a very dark part of my trauma and story is now all bubbling up on this bus while I'm crying, listing out men and their phone numbers in front of other people on this bus. I get to his house, okay? I don't say anything. I didn't realize that I could say anything, okay? I was terrified. And what was he in the mood for? Sex. So what was I gonna do? I had sex with him. And I had already, so in my brain, I was like, I just need to like get through this situation. And then I remember he, got up to start making us dinner after, and I immediately like started crying in his bedroom alone. And I quickly got dressed and I just like awkwardly left. And then I texted him on the way out and I said, I'm so sorry I left like that. There's something I had to tell you. I found out today that I have chlamydia. And this was a turning point for me because he said, oh, well, no problem. I'll just go get my pill that I need. Make sure you get all the stuff that you need. You need me to drive you anywhere to get the stuff that you need. And like, do you want to come back over for dinner or do you want to see each other tomorrow? And it was like, okay, healthy man, healthy, safe man that actually likes me, that actually wants me for more, that is not going to judge me or shame me for these things having happened. And it was a massive turning point. And that was like, you know, I met him February to like April. I moved home. So we kind of like ended things around April because he just wasn't the one. And then in May, I met my husband. So there were shifts that were already happening in my love life before I started using this method. Okay. Now I need to show you these pictures and you may have seen them on my profile recently with one of my posts. So when I wasn't using the method, the past experiences I had gone through, some of the trauma, it really increased my cortisol level. Okay. And when you're an independent woman and you have to do everything yourself, your cortisol levels are typically very high. And this can also cause a lot of problems in your body. Okay. I was not getting a good night's sleep. I was working out like crazy. I was dieting. I was trying everything possible in the picture on the left. And I didn't even recognize myself because in like grade 9 when I was like 95 pounds and then I had these events happen and I gained weight and I still look beautiful in this picture, but I didn't feel good. I felt terrible all the time. My clothes, nothing fit. I was so self-conscious and I just was so unhappy and I was struggling with sleep and my cortisol levels were through the roof and I could not get the weight off. Like this was in high school, I was going to the gym to do cardio before school and weightlifting after school. Like I was obsessed with trying to get back to the way that I was before, and nothing was working. I started using the Ferroglow method. Okay. And between these pictures, I was 155, which wasn't my like highest weight, but I know that I was 155. And then the second photo, I was 135. And this happened in a course of 2.5, 3 months. And I stopped working out in the second photo. I wasn't focusing on my eating anymore. I was not like obsessing about my self-image because the Ferroglow method was so powerful for me. The weight that was being held by trauma, which we know happens when you have cortisol and stress. Cortisol is your stress hormone. It holds on to whatever, right? So even if you are struggling to gain weight or you're not at the, like, whatever it is, even if it's sleep patterns, if it's eating habits, if it's, the way that you feel about your body, when you shift that, you will notice a massive shift in how you feel about yourself, how people see you, how men see you. My mom would even stress in the picture on the left about how I looked because she knew I wasn't happy and she knew I looked so different than when I was younger. And by the time that I shifted, now this woman just knows her boundaries and doesn't say anything about how I look other than that I look great. So it's just that programming and that shift of what you receive. Now, in the first picture on the left, I was also anxious. I was avoidant. I had, of course, self-image. I was focusing on what men were looking at on my social media. I was looking for that outside validation. My perfectionism was at an all-time high, okay? I had beliefs about men, relationships, how other people got in relationships, about myself. This was a girl who thought she would say things like, "Oh, I'll never get married." That was such a defense mechanism. I was so excited for one day to get married. I just didn't think it was going to happen. So I immediately thought, I don't even want that. I was judgmental of myself, of men. I was so easily annoyed and irritated by men on dating apps, what they'd say to me, how they'd open things up. I would take every date, every interaction with a man personally, like it meant something about me or it meant something about the future of my love life. And, I would do this back and forth, up and down of how I felt about being single. But on the outside, I was, hitting the gym, going to school. I seemed very confident, very independent. Now, when I flipped into that secure, detached feminine energy, I relaxed. Okay, those cortisol levels shifted, and I'm going to go over the science. But I started to naturally attract men and feel comfortable with the men that I was experiencing and meeting. I became that playful version of myself, that silly version of myself that I was really longing for. I had a deeper connection to these men. I led by my desire rather than scarcity. So instead of being with a man because I'm worried that he might be the only one that will like me, I stayed focused on, okay, I want XYZ. And if it's not that, it doesn't mean anything about me. It's not rejection. I only like men that like me back. We're so afraid of rejection. Okay. This is a little off topic, but we're so afraid of rejection, right? But when you get into the mindset of the secure, detached feminine energy, it doesn't exist anymore. It's a gift. It's no longer rejection. People say instead of rejection, it's redirection. It's a great example. Because you get into this energy of regardless of if it works out with this man, regardless of if this date, regardless of if this match, I know so deeply that it's going to happen for me and it's going to be exactly what I want, that the decisions you make, the way you operate, the way you communicate, it's so authentic versus this conditioned version of yourself that's trying hard to make it work, which is also in that more masculine energy that we get into as single women. So as I've consistently practiced this, not only did it attract my husband, but it shifted me into that secure, detached feminine energy that I also wanted to be as a wife, as a partner. I wanted to be relaxed, right? I wanted to be able to receive and lean back and not feel guilty. It's dating and handling rejection then really prepares you for handling rejection in your relationship because it does happen. Sometimes you both don't want sex in the same night. You can't feel emotionally rejected by that. That will cause problems in your relationship. So when you are in the secure, detached feminine energy, you don't look at these things as rejection or meaning something about you. It's detached from you. It's neutral, okay? It has nothing to do with you. If a person doesn't like you, you don't like them back because you only like people that would like you because you're great. See what I'm kind of getting at here? That shift in your brain of instead of worrying, does he like me? You're more concerned with, do I like him? Okay. That is a very big part of that, like feeling, that confidence, that persona, that embodiment that you're taking in. Now, This is a very simple 3-step process about how to put your brain through this very easy 5-minute process that creates attraction, and compatibility with the man that you actually want. Okay, so step 1 is stabilizing your amygdala. Take notes on this, ladies. So your amygdala is that fight, flight, or freeze part of your brain. It is the survival mechanism that is trained to occur around love and relationships if this is how you survived through your love and relationships as a young person or in those early stages. Now, what happens is you're going to feel normal in this state because it's been so long that this is the part of your brain that takes over, that survival mechanism, that amygdala. However, when your amygdala is triggered, you increase your cortisol, which lowers your pheromone production, making you more compatible with these, for lack of a better word, lower value men, maybe unhealthy men, maybe men that are unavailable emotionally. You become compatible on a chemical level with them when you have a high cortisol level and low pheromone production. So step 1, stabilize your amygdala, lower your cortisol, and access what we call an alpha brainwave to tap into a man's heart. When you have a triggered amygdala, you are in a beta brainwave. This is your logical, analytical side of your brain. If you are communicating with a man that you are interested in romantically from your beta brainwave, he will maybe see you as, someone to take out on a date, ask, business questions, ask for advice, have a few drinks, laugh, but he's not going to see you as commitment level. He will probably even sleep with you if he finds you physically attractive. Okay. But you're not setting yourself apart from the other women in his life. You seem exactly like his coworkers, his mother, his sister, his friends' wives. When you tap into a man's heart through the alpha brainwave, you magnetize him to you and you stand out amongst all other women in his life, which is the identity of a man's wife. She stands out amongst all other women in his life. Okay. Now, men make this decision within about 7 seconds, arguably 13 milliseconds on a subconscious level of meeting you. And the men that I've interviewed and the men that are in the attraction lab with us for our mock dates, when I was talking to them about what this is all about and interviewing them to bring them into my program to go on mock dates with my clients, they were, when I said, we don't need more than 15 minutes for these mock dates because men really do make that decision within 7 seconds. They all immediately were like, you know what? I completely agree with that. You might still be a woman that he sleeps with, that a woman that he entertains, a woman that he keeps in his life for several months because it's comfortable and convenient because he's currently single. But he will make that decision. Are you commitment material? Does he want to change his life for you? Is he willing to move mountains for you? He makes that decision, even just on a subconscious level, within 7 seconds. By the end of the day, he's pretty conscious of it. Okay. So this is why we want that stabilized amygdala right from the beginning so we can tap into his heart, because that's what makes the difference. Now, step 2 is activating the neurotransmitters. Now, these increase your pheromone production dramatically, and this increases your chemical compatibility with the man you want while regulating your hormones to feel safe in that deeper connection. This also makes the man feel emotionally safe. If you've ever, heard men talk about what they know really attracted them to a woman, it's that emotional safety while still wanting to pursue her and impress her. Okay. So when you don't have your neurotransmitters activated, you will look for validation in men. You will look external to you for validation. Your hormones and your pheromones are consistently spiking and lowering, spiking and lowering. This is when love can sometimes feel like an addictive drug, when a man can feel like an addictive drug. That's when your neurotransmitters are not activated in the way that they should be, okay? Now, last step and most important step, engage your prefrontal cortex. Now, this is the feminine energy center of the brain because it is physiologically larger in women's brains than it is in men. It is in charge of your high order functioning and your emotional regulation. Okay, so this is how you shift into secure, detached feminine energy. So men will see you as the one, because with detachment, this is where that detached from the outcome, vibrant security happens. But what's so important about this is that first step, shift into secure. Secure attachment is the only proven component in long-term healthy relationships. It's the only consistency. Money is not. Shared beliefs is not. Values is not. Body, how you look, how you take care of yourself, it's not. It's secure attachment to yourself and to your partner. And when we engage the prefrontal cortex, you can develop that secure attachment to yourself and to your partner. However, the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala cannot be activated at the same time. And if you were a child who had to really predict the dynamics between your parents, if it was all over the place sometimes, if you would get an attitude from a parent that really like shocked you every now and then, you were in that survival mode. If you had to take care of a parent emotionally, you were in that survival mode. Your amygdala was activated. So when you're in love and relationships now, guess what's firing? Guess what's working for you? The amygdala. When actually we want it to be stabilized and it to take a back seat so we can engage what matters, your prefrontal cortex. Now, this seems really complex. I'm explaining the science behind why it's so powerful. However, this can be done in less than 5 minutes. Okay? And you can see how this will work for you inside of a love audit. So if you reach out to my team in my DMs and ask for a free love audit, this is actually a very brief call with me where I go over your specific patterns and show you how the Fair Glow method will actually shift those patterns and attract the kind of man that you specifically want. So I show you how to implement this into your love life with where you're at right now and your specific personalized patterns, your dating history, okay? So make sure you drop audit into my DMs and I will get you that free call. Okay, now I want to talk for a second about my client, Christina. She's the one I wanted to highlight today. She started with me in January of this year, and I just want to explain kind of like how this works. She had avoidant men who would be in a relationship with her and ghost her, really traumatic experiences in her love life. And she was at that age and that time in her life where she truly thought, like, unless I do something big and different, this is not going to happen for me. She tried multiple coaches. She waited a very long time to sign up with me. Okay. She was with me for quite a while before we worked together. Now, she started in January. In March, she met her king. She came in saying she wanted to meet her king. She has a very specific way of describing this man. She met him using the Fair Glow method, but she also used it throughout the relationship to build such a solid and safe foundation with this man, because things are going to come up. That's natural and normal. As you progress into the new programming, the new embodiment, guess what's always going to want to suck you back? That old programming. And it gets quieter over time, but in the beginning, it's so loud of like, no, you can't possibly be worthy of this. No, you have to give in order to receive. He's going to take advantage. Maybe he's lying. Maybe it's all a joke. Maybe. And that's where that Fair Glow method comes into play with putting you back in that secure, detached, feminine energy consistently. Okay. Because that draws the man in consistently. And that's what makes us feel really good. And that's the kind of attentive man and relationship that we're looking for. Now, this also dramatically shifted the way she made sales in her business. So she's in sales, and she works for a big company. And it used to be this hustle and this hard thing. But when you shift into that feminine energy, into that receiving mode, you no longer are in this like everything needs to be hard and challenging mode. And you just draw in those opportunities. I remember the morning she messaged me after a few days of being like, how's it going to come in, Leah? I'm stressing. I'm stressing. I was walking her through the Faraglow method, implementing the steps. And she's like, Leah, you wouldn't believe it. Contracts that I never thought possible dropped into my lap this morning with a change in management. I had to do nothing to secure these contracts for the rest of the year, which was so freaking exciting. So it's not just the way this impacts your relationship or your health, it's also going to dramatically impact the way that you manifest money and success into your life, okay? Now, this is why I created the Attraction Lab. This is a 6-month immersive dating program. Before I get into this, I know we're almost at time, but does anyone have a quick question about what I've gone over that you want to drop in the chat before I talk about your opportunity to use the Faraglow method in your love life? I had someone ask me a really good question the other day, like, how do you know when you're performing for men or over giving versus just being like authentic and being a generous person and things like that? So this is such a good question, and it is in the feeling. I'm a generous person, okay? I love giving gifts. That's one of my love languages, is like service gifts. And that's what I like to give, and it's what I like to receive. Now, when you are in that secure, detached feminine energy, it's a feeling. It's natural, it's easy, it's effortless. Versus when you're in performing, you are trying to get something out of what you're doing. Okay, you're attached to the outcome, and it becomes a feeling that you can tell immediately when you turn on and off of that. And then you can implement this on the spot. So one of the really amazing things that I love about this method is that this is something that we do before the dates. So you do 5 minutes of it before your date, and you can actually shift into secure, detached feminine energy. If a man says something on a date that kind of throws you off, it triggers an old wound, something like that, you can do it in your head. Boom, back into secure, detached feminine energy. It is literally your toolkit, okay, of embodiment, of shifting your identity, of developing yourself as a secure, detached feminine woman. Okay, so I want to talk about the Attraction Lab because this is where we're doing the Faraglow method. I do this with my private clients as well. So if that's something you're interested in, just send me a message. However, the Attraction Lab, this is not like a dating tips program, okay? It's a full nervous system soul recalibration, and it changes the way that men experience you instantly. It is exclusive and personalized opportunity to work with me and my husband to attract your soulmate inside this program and lay the foundation for that magnetic, easy, lasting love. Okay, so Christina started in my group program, okay, and attracted her man. This is a premium program that will allow you to access high value men face to face on Zoom to not only learn how men perceive you, but practice implementing the exact tools and the Faraglow method that I teach you inside the program. Okay, there's no other program giving you access to practice your skills on men except for this one. And it's so important because the more you can be put around high value men, the more your body feels safe around it and recognizes it and attracts it and draws it in. Okay, so inside the lab, the more you play, because I love the energy of play in your love life, and I think that is the game changer, the more you will win. I have badges, prizes. If you accomplish some of the goals inside this program, you get to do a get ready for your date with me personally. You get one-on-one sessions, you get different prizes, okay? And it's so freaking exciting. So this is where you become the woman who naturally draws in the one with your secure, detached feminine energy. Your vulnerability comes naturally when men want to give to you, because trust me, when you attract from this, men are going to want to provide and give. You know, they're going to want to fix your car, build a fire for you, literally things that you haven't had happen for you before. Men are going to show up and you're going to be like, okay, what did I do to deserve this? How do I handle this? And we're going to use that secure, detached feminine energy to lean back and receive it without entitlement and expectation, but just appreciation and gratitude, because that is what activates a man's reward centers in his brain. These are the reinforcement of positive stimuli. It's what makes a man pursue you consistently over time. And the more effort they put in and the more attention they put in, that is where their commitment goes. Okay. That's how men work. That's how their brains work. So when you're implementing the micro signals, the body language, and the kind of silent tools, you tap into his heart and you activate those reward centers, those male instincts. Now, inside the lab, you learn how to understand the male mind and deepen the connection and trust within yourself that you're picking the right man. Okay? That you're picking the right one, and you're not going to continue to waste time or self-doubt or feel confusion about his intentions, his signals that really block that feminine energy from being embodied. Now, you get to participate in 3 chemistry tests as the dater or the viewer, okay? Where a high value man does a mock date with you on Zoom, or you watch someone and you take notes and he gives feedback, okay, on that connection. So you're actually testing out those tools. You also get to learn from the masculine mind with Jordan's support on Zoom every single month inside of the program. And you have me in your pocket on weekly calls in Facebook and Telegram. Okay. So we hop on Zoom every week. Like, it's a very hands-on support. You get to ask Jordan any questions you want anytime, share your conversations with men, dating debrief, what's going on, why it's happening. And when I see the way Jordan shows up on these calls, I just fall in love with him so much more, because he asks such powerful questions. He's so good at listening. And he gives you that little extra bit that you need to know for sure that you're on the right track, and how to kind of embody that belief within yourself. Now, this is where we're combining that strategy with the becoming piece, okay? So the investment for this program is $8,000. However, when you use the code ASTRO, you're going to get 25% off. So you're getting $2,000 in savings, and your investment will be $6,000, or monthly payments. Now you can DM me for financing options as low as $200 a month, but you have to personally message me, and then I go through your different options, okay? And the price drop will expire on Monday, August 4th, but we are unlocking huge bonuses tomorrow, okay? That are gonna involve our incredible astrologer, that are gonna involve me. And I'm so excited for these bonuses for you ladies. Like, this is where I just so excited. So there will be bonuses unlocked tomorrow, but I want you to know what you're being invited into on a transparent level from this program. And I want you to be asking any questions that you have in the Facebook group. You can create your own post in the Facebook group. And if you haven't yet, when you share that aha moment that you had today on your story, I'm also going to give you a free training that I just created. So some of you are already in, but I just created a training and I dropped it in the AstroDating Lounge. And it is the psychology behind how I became the only woman my husband wanted. I'm walking you through our getting to know each other story, how we met, what happened on that first date that set me apart from other women, okay? And, he's talked about this a lot. So I'm really speaking from both of our perspective in this training. But when you do share, not only will you get entered into a chance to win this program completely, but you will also get this free training that I just dropped on Telegram. Okay, ladies, does anyone have any questions before we go? It doesn't have to be about the program, it can also be about anything that came up today. You're so, so welcome. And if you ladies, I know we went, we're actually very on time. That's very good. Thank you. You're so, so welcome. No specific questions. Okay, ladies, if we do not have any questions right now, feel free to drop them in the Facebook group and I will see you all tomorrow. Make sure you show up live to win tomorrow, okay? And if you haven't dropped a comment in the chat, drop one now so that I know that you're here, even if it's just hi, just so that I know that you're here today and I can track who showed up live for both days. Drop your questions in the Facebook group and I will be answering them in the Telegram group, Bettina, because I love doing voice notes. Ladies, thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad you enjoyed today. Okay, I'll let you all go and I'll see you tomorrow. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you, ladies.